here you can see the first step of creating a hemp fabric. So obviously when we're dealing with a fiber crop of industrial hemp, one very important topic is the type of hemp that we're using. And with hemp fiber, the first step is what's called a decortication process. This is why it's so important to have a single stalk rather than a bush type stock. A lot of the hemp that you're seeing in the US right now are CBD crops, so they're short, more bushy type growing plants. With true industrial hemp, and that can be whether it's a seed and grain crop, a fiber crop, or a dual purpose crop, you're always going to maintain a single stalk. So, you can definitely notice there aren't any arms or branches on this stalk here. This is the lower portion of a stalk, so the stalk is typically going to be 9 to 16 feet tall. And of course, it does want to reproduce. So its flower with the seeds are on the very top of the stalk and is actually more kind of like a bamboo, the way that it grows, where it's a single stalk then coming underneath. So when we look at the hemp stalk, the fiber is actually encased only on this outer ribbon of the stalk. So you can literally peel this off. This is what is represented as a bast fiber or a ribbon fiber. So you can see how this was such a wonderful product traditionally around the world for people to utilize, because they could simply pull that ribbon right from the stalk by their hand. Of course, that inner core of the stalk is all the wood, which is the hemp hurd that goes to a lot of building materials, composites, animal bedding, even cat litter we're seeing on the market right now. So of course, that inner wood is going to be able to go to a multitude of different applications with composites and non-wovens. But now our ribbon fiber has been separated from the wood. And so you can actually see in these two bins decorticated material. These were some of our first tests for a domestic program. So at that time, we definitely were wanting to get our fiber a bit cleaner. You can see a little bit of hurd that is still in there with those little wood chunks. Of course, that has now been corrected in the processing line and is no longer in with the fiber. And you can also see the difference of pulling that ribbon by hand, or what some companies would refer to as a green decortication, where it's a pure ribbon and it's still encased in all of its plant cellulose and lignin. And now how are we going to separate those fibers out from that plant matter and make sure that that is a natural process and not utilizing a chemical process? And unfortunately in the US, our country lost a lot of its natural fiber industry in the Great Depression. The Great Depression for our grandparents and our great-grandparents completely shifted industry in the United States. And unfortunately what that did was a lot of those facilities ended up fire selling their equipment off to other countries, which meant we no longer even had those equipment lines to utilize now today or over the years to try to create a resurgence of these great natural materials. So that's going to be a very important thing in the US, is how are we going to take this fiber? So you can see how we've got such a difference between a decorticated fiber line that's nearly degumming the fiber out of those plant matters versus a true ribbon fiber that's going to take either chemicals or a state-of-the-art natural fiber decumming facility that we're just not quite there in this country. Now, this is around the corner. And obviously, with this type of a process where it's keeping it a mechanical process and not a chemical process, is where we're now being able to not only keep the highest values in our materials for our farmers and our processors, but also in the fiber itself. So when we talked about earlier being able to maintain the natural attributes of the material all the way down to a finished t-shirt on your back, this is all how we're able to achieve that, is keeping the natural characteristic of the fiber from that initial separation all the way down to spinning yarns and weaving and knitting fabrics.
Sweet.